Hello and welcome to this edition of India Revival Mission on Times Network. I'm Hina Gambhir. Today, we are going to focus on the impact of coronavirus pandemic on the hospitality and tourism sector in the country. 2020 was perhaps the worst year for the hospitality and the tourism sector, even as other sectors have started seeing some kind of green shoot, some kind of a pickup in demand. This sector is still managing to stay afloat somehow. So what lies ahead and what is it that the government can do at this point in time to help the sector is what we are going to be focusing on. Today, we are joined by Deep Kalra, who is founder and CEO MakeMyTrip. We have with us Rohit Kapoor, who is Chief Executive Officer, OYO India and South Asia. Deepika Rao, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Ginger Hotels. And we have Vinayak, Koul, who is Director at Snowlion Expeditions Private Limited. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on India Revival Mission today. Mr. Deep Kalra, let me begin this discussion with you. We know that, it was hospitality and tourism which was the worst affected sector due to coronavirus pandemic. But like every other sector has started talking about green shoots. What is the status like in your sector?
Yeah, Hina, it's fair to say that travel and tourism has been the worst hit and continues to be. But that being said, we are in a much better situation today than we were a month ago, a quarter ago, and definitely 2 quarters ago. There have been green shoots, and these continue to get better and brighter. Over the last couple of months, I think there's been a very distinct revival, both in leisure as well as other kinds of travel in the country. Happy to share that at least on the airline side, domestic airline side, we're pretty much at about 50% of pre-COVID levels when it comes to load, when it comes to people flying. And in terms of capacity being deployed by the airlines, it's at about 2/3, almost 65, 66%. That's very encouraging. November continues to, continue to do well ahead of the October Diwali season. And now the build-up for Christmas and New Year is very encouraging too, both on the airline side as well as on the hotels and accommodation side.
Okay. Mr. Rohit Kapoor, what kind of occupancy levels are you seeing at this point in time? And, is it just the holiday season demand, the wedding season demand that you're witnessing? Or do you think that confidence has started coming back among the travelers?
So, Hina, I agree with Deep that the confidence has started coming back. We are seeing occupancies which are back to about 45% of pre-COVID levels, right? And it is not just the holiday season demand or the wedding demand. Those are spikes which happen on weekends or peak dates of weddings. But the demand is fairly secular. Also, what's interesting is holiday vacation patterns have all changed post the pandemic. I think that's a very big change that we are seeing. So, for example, earlier, if your kids, you sort of vacationed only during their breaks. Today, it's possible to book a home stay somewhere, and the kids are doing school, and you're still on vacation. You're not at home, but you're outside somewhere. So, we are seeing very different patterns emerge. But the answer is except for business travel, which continues to remain quite subdued. Pretty much everywhere else, we are seeing differential levels of demand coming back.
Okay, that's a very positive thing that we've heard from Mr. Deep Kalra as well as Mr. Rohit Kapoor. Ms. Deepika Rao, what is your assessment as far as Ginger Hotels are concerned? And, what is it that your assessment is on the kind of demand uptick that we have now started seeing?
So, like Deep and Rohit both mentioned, we're all experiencing a revival of demand. It's a very fair thing to say. And I think it started way back from about August, when the various unlock phases, I think July marked the last of the localized lockdowns. And you could fairly say that from August, we've had an unlock phase beginning. So all through August, September, and I see this as sustained green shoots. So it's not that we just saw it in 1 month and it was a flash, and then again we experienced a significant drop. So both August, September, October, November, and now speaking of December as well, we are seeing that month on month, we are seeing a growth in whether you call it leisure or people traveling even for the purpose of business. So that's a lot to go with as we enter into 2021 and the last quarter of FY21. So we do see those green shoots in the Ginger Hotel portfolio. And talking about that, like for example, in the week of this week of December, we're seeing that our occupancies have now entered at a portfolio level across our entire network of 53 hotels. We've entered an occupancy of which is close to about 85% of pre-COVID levels, which is very encouraging for us to wind up this calendar year at that level. And it has been something, as I mentioned, that has been building month on month. So, and even if you look at the corporate travel that Rohit was referring to, there's also change we're seeing there. The typical companies which would normally have heavy volumes of travel, we're seeing some of them yet not come back in full steam. But we're actually seeing some other companies, whether it's projects, infrastructure, they actually have begun their travel. So I must say that we're all dealing with lots of changes and dynamism in the nature of demand, and we're responding to that and capitalizing on that.
Let me go back to Mr. Deep Kalra. I want to, before we talk about the kind of changes that you all are making at this point in time, is there any kind of a study or some kind of an assessment that was done to find out how much did coronavirus impact your industry, be it on the issue of job losses, the issue of business continuity, and, overall, how much did it really impact the sector?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And actually, a lot of work was done by industry, by the associations. I also wear another hat. I'm co-chair of CII's tourism committee. And we had made multiple representations to the government at various levels to talk about potentially the negative impact. And this was early days. So this was really, I'm talking about in the month of April, where we were just getting into our first full month of lockdown. And, it's sad to say, but I think things panned out even worse. For the next 6 months, it was really, really very difficult. Deepika is right in saying August started seeing a little bit of change. But I do fear that on the fringe sector, a lot of people who are entirely dependent on travel and tourism may have actually lost their jobs. We're talking about small tour operators. We're talking about guides. We're talking about people in that part, in those parts of the country where travel and tourism is very concentrated. So it happens for a few months. Let's say the peak season now is for travel to places like Rajasthan and Kerala. Between October and March is pretty much 80% of all their revenue earnings. And if this small player over there does not get the inbound traffic, the foreigners that they were expecting, or the domestic travel, then they will not be able to survive. So this was all shared actually in great detail. Yes, there was some support given across industries, not just for travel and tourism, to the very bottom of the pyramid. But besides that, I think the travel and tourism industry is still waiting and hope. So we are still hoping that something is there in terms of a package from the government.
Okay. Mr. Vinayak, Koul, you tell us about how much did it impact the, expedition side, the people who are into the business of adventure tourism, tour operators, and many others.
Like pure tour operators are still struggling, I would say. Things have improved in terms of people have started taking small holidays, short holidays, weekend getaways, and things like that. But the longer haul, the long holidays in terms of a 2 weeks holiday or a 3 weeks holiday, which many times in terms of adventure and expeditions people used to take, is still missing. People still would need some more time to get onto that stage.
Mr. Rohit Kapoor, I know as Mr. Deep Kalra mentioned earlier that, the industry is still looking forward to something concrete, some sort of a package from the government side. But recently, in the announcement that was made by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, the credit guarantee scheme was extended to the hospitality and the tourism sector as well. Was that of any help?
Look, I think the sector has been affected so badly that anything which comes in the form of relief is more than welcome. But I'd like to make a broader point here. This is a golden opportunity for us as a country to really create what we always wanted to create in terms of the Indian tourism sector. right? Because for the first time ever, nobody is really traveling abroad, right? Most people are very much in India and will remain so for quite some time. At least I see that for next 12 to 18 months. So what I like to see is not just government, but everyone coming together to create the ecosystem for travel. And I'll give you an example. I was at Fatehpur Sikri in September. Just the monument had opened about 15 days back. And I realized, because I was so conscious about it, that every time a person goes there, the tea stall opposite the monument, the guide, the craftsperson, everyone's family runs on travel and tourism. It's not the people who are just directly associated. So if we are able to create this ecosystem of safe and sustainable travel today, and there are many things. The government needs to come together, we need to come together, citizens need to be more conscious when traveling that they are sort of maintaining the safety protocols, etc. But this is really a time like never before to make sure that we put our best foot forward as a country and reduce the red tape, reduce compliances, which are sort of not yielding results. So, for example, the Maharashtra government has moved in that direction. Many others are thinking and taking active steps. I think these are the kind of things which will really aid in addition to fiscal grants.
Well, I think what you've said is quite interesting. And Mr. Deep Kalra, don't you think, like what Mr. Rohit Kapoor was talking about, this kind of a crisis can also be seen as an opportunity for a company like yours? For example, Prime Minister Modi has also talked about that how, Indians should now focusing on, going to places within the country. He specified a number as well. So probably this is the time to, in a way, develop the Indian tourism in such a way that, it becomes an opportunity for everyone.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, Rohit, what he said is also very valid. We have indeed a very vibrant travel supplier base, a full ecosystem. We have young people. Our population is very young. They want to travel. They can't really go overseas. Very few destinations right now, but they can go anywhere in India. And I've actually put forward an idea to the government that we should look at giving a slight rebate or a tax advantage over the next 2 years for people to do domestic travel. I think that will really help even when international destinations open up. But people will go to parts of the country which hitherto, were not that popular. We have today great connectivity through airports. A lot of new airports have actually been built out. You can reach far-flung corners of the country quite easily. We have some amazing places right here, and I couldn't agree with you more. I really hope this will be the silver lining from the pandemic for the travel and tourism industry.
Tell us a little bit also, Deepika, about the kind of safety measures that you are implementing and how much is that going to eventually impact the cost?
Right. So I think way back, I think it was in Q1 when hotels started, kind of opening up, reopening back then. So from then, I'll speak for the Ginger brand. We launched our new protocols under the Ginger 5G Safety Assurance, which basically focused on the themes of contactless service delivery, high levels of hygiene, whether it was by the Ministry of Health, whether it was by the FSSAI, all of these bodies, we followed the new norms that kept coming out periodically, and also training our teams. So what we have seen is that actually the customer is choosing or preferring to stay with established brands where they can trust that safety and hygiene will be given the necessary focus and importance. And we've been successfully hosting so many of our guests back since when the pandemic began, and it has been based on these safety protocols that we have implemented from our teams, first starting with our team to give them confidence in how to engage and carry out the services, and then on to the customer. You also, I think, asked the question of cost. See, these are not capital expenditure in nature.
Yes.
I mean, using, it's more an operating cost that one is incurring. It could be a different chemical that you use for housekeeping, but you always were anyway carrying out the necessary, housekeeping measures. Also, there was practices around resting of rooms. So, to rest rooms before giving it to the next guest. So not necessarily all directly linked to cost, but the costs that were there were more operating expense in nature. I wouldn't look at that as a significant
Okay. Mr.
expense or an investment.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Rohit Kapoor?
See, I think the cost of cleaning, etc., definitely has gone up. But also, you realize that especially we partner with smaller hotels, and they are very
No, what I wanted to understand was that is that likely to get translated into the cost for the traveler, the person who's coming, the tourist?
So look, I think if we look at our prices, by the way, overall, if you look at industry, the ARR, which is the prices have really gone down dramatically over the last 6 months, they started to recover back. But as a brand, our prices have stayed fairly stable between pre-COVID and now. Okay. And I don't see for the traveler any large additional expense coming onto their wallets because of this. In fact, one can argue that given the extent of desire for the hospitality sector and travel to bounce back, these are the best times to go out, seek the deals, and experience things which you always wanted to do. So I do think that this is the best time to be a traveler in today's world.
Okay, and to be a traveler within the country, because of course the international air travel remains suspended till the end of this month. Now I want to ask each one of you about, what is it that you are looking forward to from the government side, because budget is also around the corner. So is there any specific expectation that you have to ensure that the green shoots that have started emerging, they sustain, the demand only goes up from the current levels? Let's begin with Mr. Deep Kalra.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I would love to see a tax rebate, which is prospective, which is, forward-looking. I'm not looking and expecting now SOPs for the industry. We've gone through, hopefully, the worst. But going forward for the next 2 to 3 years, if there could be a tax incentive at the personal level for domestic travel only, that would really help the overall ecosystem. It would help our domestic hotels. It would help domestic players, tour operators, and ensure that Indians take more domestic trips. So that would be very heartening.
Okay, Mr. Rohit Kapoor.
Yeah, I think in addition to what Deep just said, I will say that as we have to accept the new normal where COVID will go away with the vaccine and it will take some time, right? So any kind of restrictions on people movement, which is there, there are health concerns which are there, but frankly, I don't think the country right now can afford mini lockdowns, partial lockdowns, those kind of things which keep coming up to the localized level. If they are done with a lot more thought and deliberation with stakeholders, that's something which will help the overall economy come back, and especially travel and tourism, because travel just falls apart if mobility is restricted of any nature, right? And equally, I think my appeal to this platform is that for each one of us to follow, wear the mask, sanitize, and stay 6 feet apart. It's not that hard.
Absolutely. Ms. Deepika Rao.
Maybe I'm just thinking of two things. One, I've been recently watching the Orissa government do a very nice campaign. I think most of you must have caught it during the cricket season. Yes. It used to come quite often then, so they're really encouraging people to travel and come and visit and do, whether they do road trips or otherwise. I think that at an all India level, wherein we actually probably revive that campaign that I think started out of Kerala. Maybe that's something where we need to give people confidence in travel. And of course, then the responsibility is on all of us in the aviation and the hospitality industry to ensure those level of safety protocols follow through. But yeah, picking a leaf from the Orissa government, if that's done at an all India level, I think that will really boost confidence in the citizens. I think that's one. I think second, the industry did appeal on this quite earlier to the government on looking at trying to release the cash flows a bit into managing operations by way of looking at some of these statutory payments or tax payments to give a longer kind of timelines or some rebates, as Deep was mentioning, because that would kind of then put more cash flow in the entire ecosystem, the hospitality ecosystem, and I think that would be some relief coming out of this pandemic.
Okay. Okay, I give you the last word, Mr. Vinayak. What is it that you are expecting from the government?
I would just say that probably this discussion needs to be divided in two phases. One is obviously the positive sides and the way forward, and one is the current scenario and how things have been in past. Talking about tour operator or a travel organizer, I would say there are many verticals to it, like an inbound tour operator, domestic tour operator, an outbound tour operator. So inbound and outbound are still going to take a long time. In my opinion, it's very far-fetched dream in 2021 as well. Domestic is the only ray of hope. The current scenario of all the operators, I would say, is really hard times. They're going through hard times because you were just earlier mentioning people are picking up their cars and they are moving on their own cars. They're just booking an hotel online. So typical tour operator is still very much idle. It has improved. It is better than before. But the government needs to come forth. There have been packages announced. But you were asking what do we expect? What does a tour operator expect? I would say we have been in touch with our counterparts in different overseas countries. There have been salaries, there have been hard cash being provided to travel organizers, tour operators, service providers, which has helped them to retain their employees and not do layoffs, which many of the tour operators were forced to do because there has been no business majorly. Some things have picked up, but that is one thing which I would expect from government to really not just loans, which because eventually even after 2 years or 1 year or 3 years we have to pay them back, and with very little business these days it is not going to be easy. If they can support the tour operators with some cash would be very helpful. And also the streamlined guidelines between all different states. Let me tell you, whatever little I have organized in the last couple of months, it is a nightmare to book a client, and every day a new guideline comes in. You book a client with some protocols in mind.
Right.
This state needs a COVID test or not, and this state needs your e-pass and things like that. And when the client is traveling, things have changed. So if the government as on a national front can come and make it as streamlined as possible, I know it's not easy for the government as well. Things are changing every day, but that is really going to help.
Yes. But your
For us
concerns are
to
quite
organize.
valid, and we can really hope that the government comes forward and provides some relief to businesses like yours as well. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on India Revival Mission on Times Network.